So, welcome to the 12th and final episode of this season. Sounds so professional to say season. Of Conversations about Integrity. Today I'm talking with Daniela Razocher, she actually says. And I call her Daniela, so I don't use the last name most of the time. But I've been really looking forward to this final, kind of culmination of this season, because we kind of started this project together, and now we're here and talking after half a year, more or less. So Daniela is my friend and co-creator of this project, Living with Integrity, that we developed over time, which had different names over time also. But generally, we spend many conversations around the subjects of embodiment, working with people, personal ethics, integrity in general. And we created this, what we also probably might talk about a bit later, we created Embodied Inquiry, the group format, online group format, and that will soon probably also exist in person format for people to inquire integrity or dilemmata in general. And Daniela lives in Vienna, I didn't mention that, and she generally focuses on healthy, creative, and effective learning and work. And she loves to engage in impactful event design. This much as a general background. And besides that, she loves to have her own garden, urban garden thing, and trade stuff and make stuff and talk to people. And I don't know, I don't think I've had one conversation with you where you didn't tell me about a new project or new idea. So this promises to be an interesting conversation again. Anything you would like to add to your introduction before we dive into further conversation?
First, I want to say hello to everyone whenever they are listening to this. I'm not sure you noticed, but my computer disconnected, so I missed my introduction. So I don't know all the things you've said, but I'm pretty sure you've covered the essentials, and we can just get started with the subject matter and dive into the conversation.
Good. So let's start. The first question I've been asking people, that's been, what does integrity mean for you? Do you have a concept or idea, a sensation? Like, what is this word or this concept for you?
I think I'd go with the very basic meaning of integrity as being whole. And for me, it has a sense of I'm fully myself, and I am or act in one piece, meaning my thinking is aligned with how my body feels and how my emotions are guiding me to move in space and with people. I think this would be my general definition of integrity.
And do you have a physical sensation that comes for you with the sense of integrity, or also the opposite? Like, did you have a physical experience when you're off, or
I think I have many answers to those two questions.
Good.
There's different, I think integrity doesn't always feel the same for me. It really depends on the context. Generally, I think there's kind of a cozy feeling and softness in my body. And my center is more actually in the physical center of the body. And I know when I'm not in integrity, usually for me, it's the upper part of my head gets really hard and tough, and this is where all my attention is focused, and I'm less aware of my feet, or there's lots of lightness in the feet, and I like I can really, it feels like the weight in my body is not evenly distributed. This is how I know that I'm not in integrity. And I think in the crucial moment, like when I have, like preparing for this conversation with you, I was thinking, what were moments recently or last year that were really important pointers for me of like, when did I maintain my integrity, or to go forward with more integrity, what should I pay attention to? And this is where I think it always feels different, because when it's a moment of I'm standing up in a group of 20 people and I'm leaving the setting, it's not a comfortable feeling. But at the same time, I know I'm in integrity because I listen to what I want.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be connected to lots of excitement and nervousness and the fear of what will people think of me. And at the same time, I still feel I'm doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, the sensations in the body can vary greatly when it comes to integrity.
Yeah, I think this has come up a couple of times in different conversations now, that there's something about taking the consequences, or being willing to take the consequences of having an idea or something that you want. And like, I don't know, standing up and leaving, or saying something, or realizing something about yourself, and be like, okay. And then this moment of taking the consequences can be uncomfortable, but at the same time still create more wholeness or more depth in a way.
I think for me, having those moments of integrity, actually it builds confidence. I trust my own perception. I act out of taking full responsibility for my decision. Even if I think it might not have been the best decision, it still adds to my confidence, because I was like, to the best of my knowledge and all my abilities I had available in the moment, I did the best I could.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it doesn't always mean I'm taking the right decision, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And are there moments that you find it easier, or I'm always asking these opposite things a bit, but easier or more challenging in everyday life moments, that the integrity can be challenged, and where it's easier for you, or more challenging to maintain it or to regain integrity?
Like, I'm thinking generally of two settings that come to mind. The one is like having my integrity for me, myself, when I'm at home doing something. Like I had like 2 or 3 days ago, I woke up with lots of nervousness in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And it can lead that I'm, this kind of nervousness, that it's quite energetic in the chest that makes me move, that I can have a fully busy morning, but I feel kind of anxious and I don't feel I'm getting important things done. And so in this case, I'm not sure it was easy, but it was a conscious choice of like, okay, I'm nervous. For a moment, I'm paying attention to how it feels. And I was reevaluating my priorities. Like, am I doing the right thing? Is this answering an email or doing the dishes or planning a workshop? Like, what is my priority right now? And I think it was just a moment of being honest to check, maybe I haven't set the priority, or like just checking in with what creates this nervousness in the body. And then it was gone. Like, it was like a slowly subsiding feeling, and it stayed for the morning. But it was just this moment of, have I been honest with myself and listening, like putting my attention inside, that gave me this sense of integrity or being whole, that created, I think, calmness in my head. So it wasn't like this nervousness was like, usually I'm like, and then I'm like all the nervousness moves up in my body, and it really gave me like calmness in my head that allowed me to do the things also with more ease that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say this is kind of a difficult thing for me to do because I love doing it. Like you said, I always have projects going on, so I need this kind of energy also to get all the projects going. So I'm a bit of a junkie for this sensation as well. And then
Mm-hmm.
actually taking this moment to pause. So I would say this is a difficult challenge for
Yeah.
me, but it's like 2 days ago I managed to do it. It was like a
Mm-hmm.
good moment.
And the difficulty is to choose whether, like, what to focus this energy on, or whether to um, allow yourself to be nervous, or what is the challenge in it?
Mm, I'm not sure it's, I would say the word challenge, but the difference it made in my experience, the one thing is I have all this energy
Mm-hmm.
and I have so many things I want to get done, so I'm using it, but it feels like when I don't own it fully, it feels like I'm a victim of this energy. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it makes me move and I'm just following along, but I haven't really made a conscious choice of how am I investing this energy and is it
Mm-hmm.
productive?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the choice of I own it and I can still, like, sometimes I make movements with my hands and I do like some embodied practices to find a way of breathing with this energy so I can expand and have more space. And this is when the focus comes automatically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like giving this nervousness in the body space so I can expand. And this is where the calmness comes from, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're not pushed from it, but you're in a way integrating it into you as you.
Yeah.
And then, did I understand correctly that you said that then the focus is also easy? Then it's not so like to know what is the next thing to do is then
I
easier.
think just now thinking of the experience, it's not a focus that comes from my head, but it's something where I feel very centered in all of my body. And then the movements aren't as hectic. I think I lose less energy in doing the things because the energy is distributed differently in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so the focus is more like a full body. I'm doing this, and then it gets like it's a fuller body, I think,
Mm-hmm.
sensation.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I was thinking about in social contexts, where
Mm-hmm.
it's easier and where it's harder for me to keep my integrity. And I think usually it's harder in social settings where I don't feel fully in agreement with the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And when I really like the people, or it's a setting or an atmosphere that's warm and welcoming and open, this is where it's much easier for me to speak up or feel I'm not bothering someone if I get up early from a conversation just because I have something else to do in between. Or so it's very much like this social atmosphere of if I feel being my unique self is welcome or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I also see this in kind of like, the body work, like the area where we work in coaching and body work and facilitation. I think there's always this ideal we all have of course, everybody is welcome and any kind of behavior and it's acceptable and we're liberal and we have all those things. But then underneath, there's this layer of course, everyone should participate in any exercise in the workshop because this is how you make the most of it. And then it becomes of this, it's not, I think it's not even the intention of the people sometimes, but it's basically the subtext I receive. And this creates kind of a friction in me of like, I understand this is what it's supposed to be. And then I have this sensation, it doesn't feel like this is what I'm getting. And
When
then
you're a
how,
participant in such
yeah,
a workshop. Mm-hmm.
exactly. So then I was like, so there's mixed messages I'm receiving. Is it me that's kind of having a wrong interpretation of what the message is? Or like kind of, this is where it becomes tricky with integrity, is like, how do I act within this? And like, I'm perceiving two different things.
Mm-hmm.
The official message or like the possible intention, and then what I really feel in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's much harder for me to, like very often I don't have an answer of, I don't even feel what should I do in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Should I ask a question? Should I ignore it? Should I just take a breath and let it go? Yeah.
And you have a kind of tool or trick that you use to deal with this in that moment?
I think in this case, I'm very much, I don't have a specific tool. Like usually breathing is a good one to just like start, continue feeling my own body. But when you ask this, what I know is when I go into these kind of settings, the clearer I am at the outset what I want out of it and why I'm here, the easier it is for me to stay in integrity, because I know I want to learn this, or I want to have this kind of conversation, or I want to learn about this subject.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can ignore like little things that feel that are in dissonance with me, or where I feel there are mixed messages in the room. When
Mm-hmm.
I'm very sure of what I want out of it, I can say, okay, this bothers me and it's a bit strange, but it's not why I'm here. I can just let go of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's the intention how I enter a space or a group or an event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any tools. Like I'd be happy to learn more, because I feel in those group settings, I don't have a good word in English for it, but I feel very exposed to the energy in the room, and I don't think I always have a lot of free choice. I feel like more like I'm a channel, or I'm like very much in the situation. It can get messy. So I don't know if you have tricks that you use in those kind of settings.
I'm not sure if I always have, but what does help me is really physically noticing my own body, like to go and feel my pelvis and where I'm sitting or standing, like focusing on that for a moment, combined, for example, with breathing, but also just to like even to push against the wall with a body part helps me sometimes to notice, okay, this is me, and then come back to what is it that I perceive within me, and what is kind of floating around in the air. And it's also, I guess, for me different depending on which kind of group this is I'm in. Yeah, if it's if I care about the people, or if I care about the subject, like if sometimes I think I also, if the thing is too weird, I can also just choose to disengage and be like, look, this is not what I wanted, and I might just leave, or say, okay, this is what it turned out, and I expected something else, and so on. But I don't know. Last year I was in a lecture thing where I got so angry at the presenter for
I
being
remember
so
that situation.
unclear. Yeah, I told you about that.
Yes.
I don't think I had a very strong sense of integrity, like in knowing what to do or how to like. I felt a bit caught in, okay, I think it's really annoying the way that he does this. I'm also curious to stay and see how he continues, like how he does this workshop, and like to see, okay, people do engage and some people do like it, and so I don't have a tool or trick that I always use, but like when I remember and like this really very physical sensation of who I am often helps me, at least to distinguish between, okay, what's going on in the room and what's going on with me, and then to see, the next step then is to decide, okay, how do I want to engage with what's happening in the room? And then again, there's this, maybe there are different motivations. Yeah, like I wanted to be in this lecture because the subject that I had read before did interest me in itself. I also was curious to watch someone else in a similar field give a lecture to learn more on the maybe professional side, or like watching, okay, how does he present what he does? And I was also interested in meeting some of the people that participated. So the moving around was a little bit between which of these things. So
And
as
you
a
were pissed
participant,
off because you didn't get what you wanted, like what was promised?
yeah, I was pissed off because I didn't get what I had expected from the description beforehand was really interesting and seemed very clear. And I felt what he then presented had nothing to do with it, or was very different. Yeah.
This is something I also know well. Like I go to lots of events, and sometimes they announce something was like, this is something I'm really interested in, I want to learn more about. And then I go there, and the subject, instead of saying, this is the big general subject, they focus on this tiny thing, and this is not, doesn't exist in my universe. So I'm really like, this is why I like about event design so much, because it's like, what do you promise? What's the intention? How do you engage with people? How do you create a sustainable output out of it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also know, like in my, like when you described about, you know, sensing your body in those moments, I think this is also whatever brings me back to it, because I know I'm missing the point for myself, where I'm really not in integrity when I'm somewhere and it's not as I expected. And then all my head is doing, it's a lot of self-talk, me in judgment mode, criticizing all the things that are working in this event, what people should do differently.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, just like I'm making points about something and I'm really not enjoying myself. And I think it possibly, like the only good part in it could be that I'm actually learning of what not to do. But I think I lost the sense of integrity because I forgot the reason why I was there and what I wanted to get out of it. Yeah. So
I find an interesting challenge or interesting endeavor, these like to see this, like to see, okay, I came for something else, and now what I'm learning more about is what I don't want to do or what I don't want to repeat. And then to still allow myself to be frustrated that I didn't get what I want, like to allow this sense of frustration that was there, to see how can I have these two motivations or even more in myself, and not have to either become totally let's say liberal and, well, everyone has their way of doing things and everything has a justification and it's okay that everything's there, when I don't feel that way. But also not go into, they did everything wrong and they offered something else and that, like kind of not go into the drama, but also not go into the disconnected kind of also almost feeling like above these people, that yes, they have also it's also okay that they exist because they, you know.
I think this is for me an aspect of like, to what extent am I contributing or co-creating the experience? Like, even if I'm just a participant in a lecture or a workshop, like I think this is where integrity actually comes in. Like, how am I showing up, but also how am I interacting? Like, am I withdrawing and just let it happen and say, like, it's supposed to be the job of the people designing the event or hosting it? And then say, or actually choosing to say, to ask a question that I find relevant in the context, or So I think this is where integrity in a group setting becomes really interesting.
Yeah.
Because you can shape by asking questions, like you never know what comes out of it, but it might actually trigger new ideas or a dynamic in the group.
Yeah. I heard a podcast or a radio show on Sunday where the host was interviewing an artist, and she said something really interesting. I really liked that because she was somehow asked about what art is or how art works, or in a way the difference between talking about art or describing art and then the experience of the actual piece of art. And she said that she reminds herself when she is in a gallery looking at other people's art and that she doesn't like it, that she might have to come back another day, because it could be that she also comes there with as whatever happened during the day that influenced her, put her in a certain mood, and then of course it influences how she perceives the piece that's in front of her or that she's there to see. And in a way that when you look at what art critics write, actually it would be interesting to see what would they write if they went there another time or 3 times. And so that resonated a lot with me, and I really appreciated that she was in a way also so honest, that she sometimes goes in a place and she thinks like, okay, these people, they don't know what they're doing, and then maybe also not always, or probably not always, but realizes this, okay, what of this is my part, and how will it touch me if I come in from a different perspective.
I totally agree. I think this kind of honesty with oneself to say, what's my part in this game or in this experience? And that I recently read a book about embodied communication, and I love this Maya Stork, like she's great, and how she describes that it's, communication is not bi-directional. It's not just I speak at Aninia and there's this message and it's this one correct message that gets across. And then if you don't understand me, it's you didn't understand me, but it's in a way this synchronicity, like how do we meet and we all shape the experience. And it's kind of a magical thing when actually there is a common sense of understanding. But it takes away this blaming that we often experience. I think this is also why I like the embodied inquiry group so much that we developed, that I learned a lot by participating and asking questions to other people that I find relevant, and then listening what other people ask. It's like, this is the glasses I'm wearing. Like when I walk into a room, the first thing I notice is always the power games. Like this is always on my mind. So I know it's something where I'm probably prone to be very vulnerable to my own glasses, because this is what I look out for. Like it's the thing that's always present. But possibly also this is my greatest gift, like because this is the radar I always have on. Like this is where I can actually share with people what I'm good at and show and share my view of this thing.
Yeah. And me too. Like this is something that I, in a way, that surprised me from our own invention. that when we had this, and again actually in the meetings that we've had, that this, first of all, that it's so valuable to restrict yourself to just ask questions, and in this way stay with yourself when you are listening to another person, and then to notice, okay, I always ask this kind of questions, or maybe not even notice that, but just to see, okay, this could also be asked about the same thing that I didn't think about, I could ask. And learning, like it's like learning to look at a thing from so many different directions. By first of all, both trying to look at it from different directions yourself, and then hearing where other people come from, or
in my mind, I always have this, for me, everything is about movement, like in the body, your breathing, everything is always in movement. So at some point last year, I had this thought of the movement of thinking or the movement of thoughts. And I know, like bringing this into the context of integrity, like I know when my attention is always with something else, and it can be a problem that I'm trying to figure out how to solve, or if it's something, another person, if I invest all my energy and thinking away from myself, this is when I lose my integrity. And I think in the inquiry groups, it's also like I ask a question and then I take this step back and I see, what does this other person want to do with a question? And it tells me a lot about my expectation, because very often I ask a question and from what I've heard before, I think how the person should answer it, or I expect this is how they will answer. And of course they will not, see it the same way as I do. So it's a huge field of exploration where new things can happen. And I think this is, like, for me also, this practice of maintaining integrity in a group with people where you discuss problems. It's like, when do I impose my truth on someone else? Like, I think it's really a breach of integrity, because I'm trying to break into another person's head and, like, this is what you should think, or I think you should, I know what you should do. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting, no? This line, this fine line between being like, this is really true for me, and staying, also allowing this to be strong, and being like, yes, this is what I feel and this is how I perceive the situation and how I want to move in it. And at the same time, not doing this onto another person. Like, to say, yes, I really think it's true. And you might not.
That's really a hard thing. And I think for me, it's like, it's also saying, I have my truth in the moment, but there's no truth with a capital T. Like, it doesn't exist. And then actually having this moment of, I have my reality and you have yours, and there's this bit we share, and there's this other element where we differ. And I think for me personally, it always comes down to my sense of confidence. Like, how much do I trust myself that I can let others be how they are, and it's very different from me. And that's a big challenge.
Yeah, and again, like, let them be who they are, but still say stop when there's something that others do or that happens around me where I really think this shouldn't be happening. And like, how do I interact there in the kind of conflict, or maybe it's not even a conflict, or like, who do I invite into my life, and who do I keep out, or how close do I allow people to come to, so that I can stay in my truth, but don't have to take people's shit, like, and pretend like because it's their truth it's okay.
I think for me, this somehow relates to pain, because sometimes it's like, there's people I really like, but at some point we're just not into the same thing at the same moment. And there's kind of like we're moving or developing in different ways, and then still saying, I still like you, but then my attention, or like I do something else. Like, there's always moments of pain and that are difficult to take. And there's something else where you said, and then I was like, there's another thought that came to. I think sometime last year, there was something where I became a bit kinder to myself and others in the course of my learning. And I think it had to do with a realization that my truth is changing all the time. And that everything is temporary. And then there's a few things in life where I think life is movement. Like, the few things I could say, and I can break them down into very practical everyday experiences where I think this for me is the truth, and it's been the truth for a good while. Like it's like a solid thing I trust.
Mm-hmm.
But so many things, like I keep learning all the time, that something that I'm presenting in a workshop, that's the new thing I've discovered and I think is the best thing at the moment, and everyone should hear about this or practice, or this kind of breathing, that in 3 months it will be something different. And then
Mm-hmm.
realizing I'm changing all the time and I don't even have a permanent truth for myself. This gave me also a different way of letting other people have a bit more of their truth.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. It was like my own, the liberty I gave myself is something then I can also extend to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm. Has I mean, we've had really a lot of conversations about the subject of ethics, integrity, like especially in context of work, but also in like everyday life. And um, I think now it's almost 2 years soon that we've
In
been
April, it'll be
involved,
2 years. Yeah.
yeah, with this specific project. I mean, we've worked together also before, and the subject came up there in a more urgent or acute sense, I guess. But so for 2 years almost, we've been reflecting a bit more, and I was wondering if there are specific things that you find you learned or that changed for you in the course of this time relating to the subject that you would like to share.
Of integrity.
Yeah.
I think what's been on my mind for the last 3 to 6 months is the connection between integrity and integration. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
said before, like when I lose myself, it's like my self-talk takes over, or my focus in the body is up here in my thinking, and then I lose the body sense and I'm disconnected, and then it doesn't work on the outside either.
Mm-hmm.
And like I enjoy looking at the big picture and where we are moving as humanity as a whole. So it's very, my work is very much about the individual, but then it's also about big systems and change. And I think we're in a time where there are so many challenges. And what I've chosen as a focus for myself is how much of a consumer I am in everyday life. And I think this has so much to do with my sense of integrity and agency. Like, how free am I to act in life in a way that feels it's in tune with my values? So I think this is like, I'm not it's changed. I think it's my current focus. It's not all, the entire subject of integrity, but it's something that I see where I think most anything that has to do with the business world or life, it's outside, is about being a consumer. And it's not just buying food and clothes and electronics. It's like even people who try to change the world and they go to workshops and they learn about creative engagement or social businesses, mostly people who actually take the step of actively going somewhere and they buy a ticket, and then most of the time they're just fed information, and you go home, you're tired because you've had so many and even good things, like it's great speakers, it's great people, there's a lot of energy buzz at a conference, there's lots of learning and exchange, but you're filled with information, like everything stays up here. It's like feeding. There's no time for digesting and integrating it, and like what do I make of it, and what's nourishes me, and what do I want to implement in my daily life. Like this part I think is completely missing. um, and this is where I have also my focus of for myself, of choosing to, like, I love reading, and actually the stuff that I read about I try to test in life. It's like I go out, it's like I read this about the things in the feet and how does this feel, so I'm experimenting it and making it real, but I really chose to read less
Mm-hmm.
or to watch less stuff online for this year, and try to create more output with all the things I've accumulated. So that's kind of my current focus in terms of maintaining my integrity, also because there's so many things I have to say and then it gets stuck in my drive where I write a text every day, but I only publish something once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think last fall I went to a writing workshop over the weekend. And after that, for 2 months, like usually I do some kind of body exercises or breathing or meditation in the morning. And after this workshop, I really realized how much of an embodied practice writing can be. So every morning before consuming anything, I chose to get rid of what's still in my head. And it might be stupid thoughts, it might be creative ideas, but I chose to put down what's in my mind. And it was really nice practice. Like I'm not as consistent with it right now, but I'm very aware of like a give and take with the world, or like an input output.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know how, if you can relate to this
Yeah.
something.
I think for me, what changed in the last 2 years is the amount of output I had. um, I'm not sure if, I had, because I had a while where I wrote every week and wrote every day and wrote, like, made videos, and like I was very consistent with that and had a very strong routine with it also, and like practice, and I wanted that. Um, and I felt like in general, I think I feel like I became a bit less obsessed about principles. So the principle of writing once a week, or doing something once a week, or doing training every day, or all of these things. And I've been exploring a bit more, like I have an intention and I want to see where, if I follow my intention, but not like out of principle, because it's still true, because I still feel that this is what I want, then what happens? And throughout the conversations about integrity, like now also with all these other people, I think the same became true for this subject of integrity. Like, in a way, I believe that this is what we aim for. I think life, in a way, is about having integrity, because like living is like the process of living is wanting to be whole, or wanting to create something new that again is whole, or makes the world more whole, or something like this. And it struck me, especially in the conversation with Tolly, I think, who said that in a way you are always in integrity, even if you are split, because there's something that you're afraid to say and then you say something else instead. In yourself, this is still both there. You are both lying or saying something else, and you're also doing this. And the question is more maybe about how aware am I of this? And how do I deal with it? Like, do I ignore that I'm doing this, or all of this? But I am this person that does maybe 2 things or 3 things, or maybe once more things even at the same time. And I'm also this person that cannot do all the things at the same time, for example, but has to take one step after the other, and then sometimes suddenly things do happen at the same time. So I feel less pressure, I guess, around the subject of integrity for myself. But at the same time, I also noticed that I'm more attracted to people that are more open about the diversity that is within themselves. Like, that don't pretend I'm just this, or I'm just that, or I am always, I don't know, whatever. And that I'm more attracted to these people, or I'm more, yeah, drawn to being with them, spending time with them, or yeah, more interested, because I'm less interested in peeling it out if the person doesn't want to. Like, I'm curious to also ask other people questions if they just show one face, but I'm not so interested in knocking down walls and saying, like, come on, you have to show that you're a human being that has obviously different sides.
I like what you said about this with less pressure and having an intention, because I think it's this idea of you have a felt sense of what you want, or you can set an intention, and then life happens and you don't impose, your ego or your mind doesn't impose how it should look like in real life. Like it becomes more of a dialogue with reality. Like a, yeah, I like it very much. And but I still catch myself, like for me, the writing thing, it was like doing this for 2 months, it was organic. Like it happened because I was like, wow, this is great. So I'll do it. And then at some point it stopped. Like I woke up in the morning, I was like, I don't want to do it today. And then I was like, what am I doing instead? And I catch myself like there's always this dream of this, like this perfect state where you're always in integrity, or you're always energized, or you're always in a good mood, and it's just not life. I really agree with what Tolly said, that actually I think the integrity happens of just taking the next step. Like every time you get stuck or you feel you haven't been honest with yourself, of like becoming aware and then choosing what to do with it, like keeping it in movement, I'd say is a good pointer to I think like integrity is something like it's a constant process, and you're always trying to get to it. You're moving in and out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, while at the same time being in it. It's like a Schrödinger's cat problem.
Yeah.
Ha, funny.
I like paradoxes.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I'm a bit conscious of time because we've talked a lot. There's always a lot to talk when we talk, so this is a reflection of that as well. Um, so I wanted to ask if you have a kind of practice or a kind of tool or a resource, anything that comes to mind that you would like to share with the people listening as something that they can experiment with.
I think in the same vein of what I've said before, with this information overload and getting scattered by being distracted by so many things that are going on, no matter if I create them by projects myself or if life happens by having lots of little lights and stuff that, people that want things from me. I think one way for me to reach this sense of wholeness again, I think I call it collecting myself. It's like taking a moment, breathing, checking in with my body. And sometimes I do it from like when I'm already quite top heavy. It's really like I start where I'm heavy and I'm moving down, like a body scan from top down. Sometimes I start with feeling my feet and moving, like bringing my attention from the feet up. And then just becoming aware of how I think and how I feel. And like I do it sometimes, it's just sitting like now. In a way, it's like or aligning my thinking, my emotions, my body. And sometimes I actually do it standing in my room and see how do I want to navigate? Like, do I need to make a stretch? Do I want to lie down? Of collecting and aligning myself. I think this would be the practice. Sometimes I do it by writing everything down that's on my mind so my mind can come down.
And do you have a specific time that you set for that, or do you have a recommendation for
The
someone?
writing, very often I do it in the morning, especially when I have those moments when I feel really nervous in the morning. I was like, before I forget anything, I'm writing everything down. So I have this app on my phone where I can cross-reference and I can use it in different ways. But I was like, anything that's on my mind, or when I can't go to sleep, I write everything down. Like, so morning or evenings would be the writing bits. And this checking in with my body, I'd say, is like a constant thing I do throughout the day. It might be on the metro on the way to work, or it might be after my lunch break. Like, so I think there's no
So it can
specific
be like a
time.
10-minute or 5-minute thing of noticing the body.
Or even 3 minutes. Like, I'm not particular about length,
Mm-hmm.
but I have, like, it's daily practice, I'd say. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Anything that you still have on your heart that you would like to share or add before we round off?
I don't have a specific, don't have an image of who will be the listeners to this conversation, so I don't have a directed message.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say enjoy and play with it. I think there's something playful about integrity. It's not a serious thing. Like, it can be really fun to discover that you can trust your perception and start asking questions to other people, or like, I think, have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if people want to know more about what I do, they can check out my website. I've had a really fun 30-day program on last 2 summers ago, and it's gonna re-emerge soon in a new way. It's called Moments of Presence. If people want to check in with their bodies in different ways,
Yes, and the
this is
links to
something they
this
can
will
have
be in the description of
they can have a look at. I think it's quite a fun thing of getting an email every day for 30 days about breathing, your emotions, inspirations, stuff that makes you grounded in yourself. So that's something I can share with whoever is interested, who's listening to this.
Cool. Thank you for joining for this conversation. This
It
kind
was
of
all
public
my pleasure. It was really
one.
fun, like, because we have so many conversations, but they're never recorded publicly. So it was nice we had this way too
Yeah.
to share.
And who knows what else will come up in the next
And we should
time.
tell people about our thing. Like, we're hosting monthly question sessions to
Oh,
get
yes.
unstuck. It also has to do with integrity and solving dilemmas. So if people are curious to try, we're doing it once a month online.
Yeah, on the last Monday of the month.
Exactly.
I will also post the link for that. Good.
Yes.
Thank you for the reminder. And yeah, now I wish you a lovely day. And thank you for listening.
Same to you. Yeah.